Hi all, sorry for the long video, can't know whether I mentioned it in the last video I made, but unfortunately I had pneumonia over Christmas. Yay, awesome. Not particularly, no, it knocked me off my feet for a fair few weeks, so I did manage to, at least before I got pneumonia, drop off the exhaust at the local company that does Cerakoting. So the exhaust is now completely it's Cerakote, I think is the name of the product. It's a version of a ceramic coating. The 3D printed tailpipe looks really nice now. It's kind of, I like this color. It looks very kind of military and mean, I think would be the word, pretty much. You know, polished stainless is nice. That looks really, really good, but you know, I need to try and keep some heat in where I can. So our 3D printed tips come out pretty good. That piece you see with the line is behind it. That's actually a phenolic spacer. They do a low bake product of this, so basically it doesn't have to get put really, really hot in an oven to dry it. So that's a phenolic spacer to basically try and stop some of the heat getting through to here if this catches some of the heat and doesn't transfer it through to the body, basically. Yeah, still some filing to finish off of that, but so the exhaust is pretty much all coated, waiting, all lovely. We had the mounting brackets, which bolt obviously solid to the turbo, and this bolts back to the hot side of the turbo. This does have the also phenolic spacers top and bottom here, so it shouldn't transfer the heat, or shouldn't transfer as much of the heat, should we say, from here to the chassis mounts. We chose not to coat the Inconel expansion joints, so the one on the wastegate and the two Inconel joints on the tri-wire system before the turbo. And they do have a slip tube that goes inside of them that then allows us to move and sort of flex around a little bit. So these won't get as hot as the outside surface the rest of there. They're going to get warm still, but they're not going to get as hot out. So it's already got some kind of insulation, as you think. So we didn't do the Inconel joints. They just masked off either side and sprayed there. So we are done on the exhaust. So this is just thrown back on, just made to stop it knocking around. We did quite a bit of plumbing in the back here, finished off thing, realized there's a couple of fittings we needed. There's one swing 180 degree bend here for this massive dash 16 return oil filter. So it's actually pre-filtered when it comes out of the scavenge ports. And from the air oil separator, it then has to go through a 75 micron filter before it comes back to the tank. And then obviously, so basically the pump is kind of saved a little, or the pressure pump saved to a point, because any debris should be 75 micron filtered before it goes back into the pump. And then obviously post oil pump, it's oil filter before it goes into the motor. So this should take out any larger debris. I hate to think there's any in there at all, but it's just a safety system, so that's nicely tucked away in there. Still a little bit messy. I've still got to make up some brackets to make them a little bit more solid. I said this one fitting's a pain in the ass. I could not get the damn thing to fit on, so I've ordered the Aero Quip fitting for that. Apparently they're a lot nicer to assemble. Just on the Dash 16, it's just so big, it's been a real pain to get it on. $120 for one fitting. And they seem to be out of stock in quite a few places that I try to buy it from, just to make it that little bit more annoying. So, plumbing almost done. Where are we going? Oh yeah, on the front, we mounted the headlamps. We epoxy bonded the headlamp pods in. We bolted the lights on basically just to make sure that one was making the back cover, the splash cover, there was plenty of clearance. We did throw a couple of rivets onto there, but really that was just basically to hold it while the epoxy bonding agent was going off, which is, where are we? 3M8115. That's the product we use. So I needed some splash guards for the back. So I made a cardboard template, or CAD, as widely known, of the shape. I did some really, really expensive aluminium molds, because, you know, these are really simple items. So we bent some aluminium after doing the cardboard template, like so, and we just cut some aluminium pieces bigger than the template, and then did a wet layup over the top of them. I tried to do one on the inside, thinking I might get a reasonable finish, but to be honest, without a vac bag, because I didn't want to go through the hassle of a vac bag for these, because they're pretty simple plates, you end up with some voids, which is not easy to get rid of without a vac bag, to be honest. It's because it's cloth. It doesn't want to come, sometimes doesn't want to form when you go. So I tried this one, but the inner surface looks quite good. And a friend of mine has done the inside of his P4 replica. Basically, most of the internal, the dashboard and the rear bulkhead out of this. And to be honest, it looked really good. So they ran over with a roller at the end of it to remove like any excess. The finish you get obviously is rough because it's basically you've got the weave of the cloth, but it looks really good. You know, I kind of like the look, and for something that's not for the external part of the car, you know, I think that looks really nice. So wet layup and simple. I still have some trimming to do, and I've got to make some little tiny brackets, obviously, because I was originally going to bolt this to the take it off. There we go. Was originally going to bolt the thing to the back of this piece here, which mounts the lamp, but of course this is adjustable to get your beam pattern in the right place. So if this becomes adjustable, that moves, then now that's kind of silly. So now we're going to basically just add a couple of little tiny brackets, and we'll just glue them to the body. So that is a separate piece to this. So we can adjust this to wherever we want, and then that still goes up. Now on top of these, we also have to have some air passage, because obviously we have a exit fan here and we screw on a entry fan here, so we have air pass going through. So we need a little louvered aluminum panel here to basically suck the air in, but you want to be able to pull the air from the forward part, so any water coming from here, basically shouldn't be a massive amount of direct water hit that. And then on here we want some louvers that point down, so basically the air that comes out, it shouldn't get any air, it shouldn't get any water sort of vertically hitting, so it'd have to sort of come up. So we need to put a couple of little planners in there, just to make it easy. I've just done them straight like that, and I'll just add and rivet some little aluminum louvers in there. So yeah, so we've done what should be finished hopefully by tomorrow, have the inner panel. So the headlamp section itself is done. Still got to pull the front clip off and finish all the, this is just like rough cut to the line. We've got to finish all this edge off nicely that goes all the way around where we've trimmed it. And then we will look at the ducting between the two nostrils and how we adapt that to the radiator fans. So still have that to play with on the front, but we're pretty close there. I can't remember if I mentioned in the last video or not. It's been a while, maybe not. We do have now an intercom system. I'm guessing it's going to be reasonably raucous in here with a solidly mounted engine with no engine mount. So just to make it easy, I've put an intercom system in here, and we'll mount the intercom. I printed this bracket at the back of it, screwed it into the box where there was plenty of room for the bolts, and then we'll mount that basically on the bulkhead panel here. So we've already started to make some templates for the bulkhead panel itself, which obviously will just cover that back face up, and it'll get away. You won't see the electric connectors in there, and the wires going to the roof. The inside of the bodywork as such we will trim, but you won't have to trim much of it. It's mainly just like a couple of inches of each edge, and then the rest of it's going to be pretty much hidden. So yeah, so we've got the last electrical piece to add to the car as the intercom. Now I do have a spare cable going to the roof. I doubled up on one of them, so it's handy. So now I can run that for the supply to the intercom and have that as a separate fuse. So yeah, that's kind of it. Oh yeah, we did the vacuum infused part that mimics the shape of the front here. So now we have we did vac bag them, obviously, which was got a lot better finish. They do have to be clear coated. I may clear coat these. These already come, I think, clear coated. This was just a flat piece of carbon I bought. So they are now in. So the front's getting pretty nailed up. There was a couple of weird boxes that we ended up having to make. I got pissed off with the particular steam port system that I had for the car. So I've made this little aluminum block now. So basically you can take the steam ports from each corner of the head, basically just to stop any air bubbles getting into the heads. And then this one fitting here will go to the tank. It's just a rough block at the moment, just drilled. I will machine this down about 1/3, so basically take some weight out of that and make the edges a little bit nicer and machine around it, and then put some drill holes in that, and we shall remove the valley plate again. And that sits basically underneath the manifold and basically down in the valley plate, and we'll bolt it to the valley plate. So then we'll take our four corner fittings from each corner of the head, as to make sure we don't have any air bubbles in the water system. So that's the steam port. Now, this was something that I kept thinking about, and it turned out that it was something that other people do quite often. So I was concerned. I do have a oil return scavenge pump port, this one here, that is purely for the oil for the turbos. So the 4 scavenge for the engine, which you can't see the fittings because basically it's internally ported. Those 4 scavenges are up for the engine, but this particular fitting here is for a scavenge for the turbos. I was a little bit over concerned that it might create too much scavenge suction on the post side of the turbo, and it might be sucking the oil out of the turbo before it really, so almost like dropping the pressure in the turbo as such. Didn't like that idea. So to stop that from happening, you put into a little tank, basically. It doesn't really have any volume. It doesn't need to have volume. But basically there's a void space in here and there's an O-ring seal there, something I just machined up. So you have the 2 turbo oil returns to here. You have a scavenge that'll pull out of here, but just in case there's like, you scavenge more oil than wants to come in, instead of dropping the turbo, dropping a suction basically, or a vacuum into the outlet of the turbo, you have a vent. So this 4th one is a vent, which then I'll connect to the top of the motor. Basically just need to get into the breather system. So top of the motor on the other side is the easiest way to go. So if for whatever reason, say like it's at a sweet spot for the pump when it pumps the most, then we'll end up pulling some air from inside the motor. So, which is an advantage as well, because it also gives you a little bit more crankcase vacuum if at that RPM you're not getting as much. So it's pulling more, you're partially pulling more crankcase vacuum as well as the other 4 obviously scavenges from the sump itself. So this is just an insurance policy to make sure that I don't pull too much scavenge out of the turbos and drop the oil pressure inside the turbos. It's just something I just don't want to do. So this will fit underneath the motor. Luckily there is, oh, you probably can't see it. There is about 2 inches under the bottom of the tray, because our gearbox is our lowest point, not the engine anymore, because of the dry sump system in the engine. There's literally a step of about 40 millimeters. So I can fit this down on the floor, so the turbos can naturally drain down to there and the scavenge can come up in the vent. So, and I said the vent will use this port here probably to get down to it. So 2 silly little boxes, but it's those finishing items that are just, if you cheap out and you don't do the research on some stuff, it can bite you. So so there we go. We did start the rear wing. I did start to lay up the rear wing. We've got our 3 layers of carbon. We've got a layer of, I can't think they call it spread toe, I think it's called now, but it looks like checker. But so we're using that for the outer layer of the wing. And then I've got a few layers of 600 gram normal twill. And then in between those layers, we've also got a layer of 3mm Soric. So basically to space out and make it more structural, sort of like a core mat of some sort. There you go. So I'll make that wing, instead of being sort of 1.5mm thick, it's going to be closer to sort of about 5 mil thick. It said 3 mil solid, but when I actually measure it, it's 3.3. Oh well, there you go. So I started laying this up, started doing my calculations for the weight of the cloth insole to figure out exactly how much resin I've got. And I kind of realized I hadn't got enough resin because I had no idea exactly how much resin the Soric would take up. It does take some. It is specifically designed for carbon infusion, but it will take up some resin. And I'd got less than a gallon left, and I just didn't want to risk it. So I thought, wow, I'm gonna have to order some more. So we've opened an account now with a more of a local company. This was in BC instead of Ontario, so it's a little closer. And they actually have a slightly less viscous carbon infusion resin. It's supposed to have all the same properties as everything else. So basically, that's on its way. So once we've got the resin off, finished off that, put the vac bag on it, and then we can start pulling the rear wing. So this is the lower half of the rear wing, and then as you can see, this is the top half. So we've got enough the spread toe to do like the whole outside surface in that sort of checker, which I kind of like. So yeah, that was a bit of a pain, but you know, such is life. You can't. That's the way things go. So yes, yeah. Before everybody asks, the Devon body is for sale, and hopefully I've got 3 people coming around this weekend. One so far has failed to turn up, but we'll see what happens with the rest. Okay, so yeah, it's like not a huge amount of progress, but I'm feeling a lot better now. So I've got a lot more done in the last week than I've probably got done since Christmas. Okay, speak to you all soon. Bye.